Okay, so after Judge Dredd, what did you move on to next?
Well, after Judge Dredd, because Judge Dredd was keeping the company alive, the Olivers obviously had fallen out with Codemasters at that point, so we're trying to get work from other people, and they got a PlayStation 1 dev kit, which the original dev kit looked like a PC box, basically.
Okay.
It was a big white box. So we all started learning C at that point. It was before everything was in assembly.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So we all started learning C, which was about 95. And they got Fire and Claude for, I think it was BMG who did that, and Creature Shock from Argonaut. So they wanted that ported to the PS1. So I ended up working on the PlayStation 1 version of Creature Shock, and Tony Povey, who I worked with, was doing the Saturn version. But this was just for the Japanese market, so it was for Data East.
Oh, okay.
And it had kanji, which was a nightmare because it had like thousands of characters.
Yeah.
for a bit of text.
Yeah.
So I mean, after that, basically, I had a bit of a falling out with the Olivers. So I ended up going to NMS Software, which was in Warsaw, and I actually moved there with my girlfriend stroke wife at the time. And the first game I worked on at NMS was 360X, which never got released. There seems to be quite a few occurrences that never got released. It was basically like Thrust.
Oh yeah, okay.
With big caverns and stuff like that. Worked on it for about 2 months. I mean, I helped out on Tilt on the PlayStation 1, which was done by Glenn Benson for the PlayStation, and Chris Urquhart, who did Daddy Thompson's on the Specky.
Yeah.
He did the Saturn version, I believe. So I helped out with the full motion video for Tilt. I didn't do anything else on that. And then after about a month working on 360X, apparently it was found out they didn't have the rights to do it. They weren't asked to do it, and so it just got canned instantly. So somebody was under the presumption it was under commission, but it wasn't. So that stopped, and then I got moved on to Mass Destruction. Now, Mass Destruction originally on the PS1 was being coded by Keith Jackson, who was my producer from Probe for Judge Dredd.
Right.
So a little bit of a cross people going different companies here, there, and everywhere, as it always has been.
Yeah.
But he basically couldn't do it any longer because he ended up with a management role. So I took over from him. So I was doing the PlayStation 1 version, and Steve Deacon did the Saturn version. So it's sort of always the same. One person does the PlayStation, the other one does the Saturn. And Andy O'Neill, sadly deceased, was doing the PC version. So we all worked on that. I mean, that went really well. It was great fun to write, because it was just like getting your tank, 3 different types of tank, all sort of 3D, slightly top-down-ish. You know, everything 3D models, blow everything up, run over the little men with, in your tank, and hear them scream. It was just a lot of fun.
Yeah, mindless violence is always fun.
Yeah, when your tank had various weapons, high explosives, it had a flamethrower, you had all sorts. So, and it was, it was like mission based. It was good to write.
Yeah, good fun.
yeah, and after that, I started working on Battleship based on the Hasbro board game.
Oh, right.
Now, funnily enough, didn't get released. I mean, it had the classic Battleship, and then it had a 3D version as well, which was sort of like Mass Destruction, but with ships.
Okay.
Because you could even add, it was sort of like Carrier Command as well, because you could even add like helicopters that could take off from the aircraft carriers, and you could fly them around.
Oh, well. Okay.
And it had like really good full motion video. I've still got it on the PS1. The build that does work. It's just not finished.
Gotcha.
But then NMS went bust, as usual. So I was then looking for another job, and I went to see DDI, but I didn't really like the look of that place because Glenn had already moved there. Chris, I think, moved there. I'm not sure. Steve Deacon, who did Mass Destruction, had already moved there. I was pre-warned not to go there. And then I got a call from Keith, who basically was my producer on Judge Dredd, who obviously was doing Mass Destruction before I did it, and I ended up going to Runecraft where he was the manager there. So I ended up going to Runecraft, and it sort of carried on again like that. So at Runecraft, I worked on quite a few things. The first thing I worked on was Scrabble from Hasbro. There seems to be a lot of Hasbro things going on, because I did a demo at Risk as well when I was at NMS, but that went to Runecraft in the end, so that didn't get released either. So I did Scrabble, that came out. The first year I was moving house, because obviously I bought a house at that point.
Yeah.
So I worked at home, and then as soon as I sold the house, I moved in-house. I was just going once or twice, well, a few days every other week or whatever in the meantime.
So had you moved to PC by this time now, or were you still on PlayStation?
No, PlayStation.
Still PlayStation. Okay.
Yeah. So I started Runecraft in about 98, 99, something like that.
Yeah.
So when I went to Runecraft, so I did Scrabble to start with, which was mostly at home. And then when I went in, I was put on Spec Ops Stealth Patrol, which was basically a first-person shooter. A bit like every other game on the PC at the moment.
Yeah, it's been like that for a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has, yeah. Which was all right. I mean, I didn't... What it was then is I pretty much had a proper engine for doing front ends, because I knew how all the memory card stuff worked, and I could knock up a front end in a small amount of time. So for the next couple of years, I mainly did a lot of front ends, and other people just worked just primarily on the in-game part.
When you say front end, the whole menu systems for the games,
system, the video, the saves stuff, everything like that.
Oh, gotcha. I got you.
Everything but the in-game part.
Yeah.
So Spec Ops, it was all front end. Whereas, and a few other people doing the in-game. And then while I was doing that, I ended up doing Barbie Super Sports. Front end, don't laugh.
Can't help laugh after you say. Can't help laugh after you say don't laugh.
The front end for all of that, and it sort of kept evolving, because I did that because I was asked to code review someone's code. When I looked at it, it was a mishmash of about 3 or 4 people's games from different companies. It literally was just like all splattered together. It was terrible. As soon as I did the code review, he left and never came back.
All right.
Because he'd been working on it like months. So I got it all completely rewritten from scratch in a matter of a few weeks.
Wow. Okay.
And that was while I was doing other things at the same time. And then I was asked to do a code review of Baldur's Gate, and the bad thing about that code review is there was no code. It literally all it did was load a screenshot up, display it, load the next screenshot up, display it, and he'd been working on it for nearly a year. Literally, I did the code review on that. He never came back. He basically blagged it for a year. Couldn't actually do anything. So I ended up writing all of the front end for Baldur's Gate. I mean, there's a lot of front end in Baldur's Gate. It's everything but the bit where you walk around. So all the map stuff, all the video stuff, the prologues, the sound, the intros and the speech, the character generation, the spells, everything apart from the in-game part. And there were about 4 other people writing the in-game part. I rewrote all of Baldur's Gate in C. They used the C++ from the original PC version, which is why it was so slow, because it was so recursive. You could have 20 different routines recursive, or you go right to the end of it and there's no code in it. That's why the PC version was so slow.
I will say.
It was very badly written.
Yeah.
Anyway, 2 weeks before we'd finished that, and this was about a year's work, obviously including me doing other things, because I did another Barbie game in the meantime, front end wise. Interplay canned it because Baldur's Gate 2 was coming out, and they didn't want it to interfere with the sales. So with about 30 bugs left, it just got canned.
All right.
Slightly disappointing, because I like my D&D stuff. So.
Okay. Yeah.
And after that, I ended up being put on Pajama Sam 3. You are what you eat, from your head to your feet. Conversion from it was a bit like Sam & Max Hit the Road style.
Yeah.
Cartoon game, basically.
Mm.
It had hundreds of thousands of frames of animation. It had speech. It was about 50 screens, but everything you clicked on each screen animated. So I literally had to write my own cartoon engine to get it to work on a PS1, which only had a small amount of memory and limited VRAM. And
wow.
So because it used is it Scrum engine, the one the Monkey Island used?
A Scum, yeah. Yeah.
Scrum, that's it. I
yeah.
can't remember exactly what it's called.
Yeah.
But it uses that engine. So all I got was the graphics, and I had to write all the code from scratch, which was fun.
20 box tops. And that means I can get the Pajama Man action figure with Titanic elbow thrust. I can hardly wait.
So, I mean, there was a couple of us help with the AI near the end, because I was literally, I mean, the artist, they had to scale all the graphics down to fit on the PlayStation 1, and then retouch all the outlines for every frame of animation.
Right, yeah. That's a lot of work.
It was a lot of work,
yeah.
because Sam himself had over 70,000 frames. Because obviously on each screen, as you're running down each sort of whichever entrance, that itself was a whole FLC animation. And with the compression, I mean, I literally had to compress it down, do various compression types, see which one was the best, and use that for every single frame. And then it live downloaded each frame per frame of each type of animation, otherwise it wouldn't have fit.
Right, so it was constantly reading off the disc.
It was constantly reading from memory for that screen to put into VRAM.
Oh, I see. Okay.
They had to decompress it, then put it into VRAM, then it displayed it on the next frame.
So it was doing all that on the fly?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then obviously with speech and everything else on top, and 5 odd languages, and yeah. it was a big piece.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks easy. I mean, if they'd given me the sauce, it might have been a bit easier. But
Aha! All right, cookies. Your dinner spoiling days are over. This is a great party.
so yeah, that finally got released, and this was at the point where Runecraft started with 10 people-ish. By the time I'd finished Pyjama Sam 3, there were over 350 people at Runecraft, and it was clear things were starting to go a bit downhill. Too big, too quick, and eventually it just sort of collapsed on itself. So, as usual, it seems to be every company I go to goes bust.
So was you said Runecraft, was that your company or
No.
No. Oh, okay.
No, it was a company owned by Martin Hooley, who used to, I can't remember the name of the other company now. Imagitech, have you ever heard of that?
Magitech, possibly.
Yeah. I mean, it was great while I was there. I mean, I did a few other things, like I started a demo of Butterfly Martians for the Game Boy Advance, but got given to somebody else because I was on too high a wage at that point.
Yeah.
Then they decided to move me to the Leeds office, which means I was going from Bury in Manchester to Dewsbury, and then getting a train to Leeds and back again every day.
Yeah, that's a hard travel plan. That is.
To do that, I was actually working on another Barbie game as well, which is the third Barbie game I worked on.
You like these Barbie games?
And that sort of tipped me over the edge, and I ended up resigning. So.
Yeah.